Hi, my name is Danica, and today I have my June wrap-up. The first book I read in June is Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. I'd heard really good things about this one, so I knew I was going to like it, but I was expecting it to just be funny. And it is funny, but it also has a really good plot to it. Like, I was completely drawn into it, and I ended up enjoying it even more than I was expecting. Also, I heard that this had gay subtext for the two guys on the cover, and I would not call it subtext. I'd say it's pretty textual. It's pretty obvious in the book that they are exes. I don't feel like Noelle Stevenson was trying to hide it in any way. And then continuing in the comics vein, I read Adventure Girlfriends #1 by Morgan Shandro, and also the Adventure Girlfriend vignettes. I saw one of my friends on Twitter post a picture of this as part of their haul from a con they were at, and I thought it looked amazing, so I contacted the author on Twitter and asked if there's any way I could get a copy. She had some copies she still had for sale, so I bought these. I thought the first one was really cute. I really like their personalities, and I love the kind of D&D like setting, but I was surprised that they're not officially a couple in this first issue. I actually ended up enjoying the vignettes better because they are together in the vignettes. There's some great D&D and video game references in this. The art inside is not quite as polished as it looks from the cover, but I still really enjoyed these ones, and I would definitely love to read any more from this series. After that, I read Queer by Choice by Vera Wiseman, and I have a full review of this at the Lesbury, which I will link below, but short version, I really liked the concept of this. This book started off as a thesis, and it reads like it. It gets pretty repetitive in parts, including actually using the same quotes throughout the different sections, and I really wanted to hear more from the people who did identify as queer by choice. The vast majority of the people interviewed in the book didn't think it was a choice or thought only a small portion of their identity was a choice. This is also from the 90s and the interviews are from the 80s, so it's not super current, but I did find some interesting bits in this book, but it isn't one that I would really recommend. After that, I read You Don't Have to Like Me, Essays on Growing Up, Speaking Out, and Finding Feminism by Alida Nugent. I found this an enjoyable read. I was laughing out loud at several points. It's definitely from the perspective of someone who is a traditionally feminine, straight woman, and her experiences were just not really something I could relate to. She does sometimes acknowledge queer women, but when it's not explicitly talking about queer women, it's kind of assumed that if you're reading it, you are a fairly traditionally feminine straight woman. I also find it a little bit funny when books like this try to convince you to become a feminist, because I'm pretty sure that most of the people picking up a book that has feminism in the subtitle are already feminist. I think this is probably one that would be good to give to someone, to give to a teen girl that you are wanting to know more about feminism. It's very approachable, and it does tackle things like eating disorders and racism really well, but overall it just wasn't really for me. Speaking of books that weren't for me, Low Volume 1, The Delirium of Hope. I'd heard this recommended, I think from some Book Riot people, so I was really expecting to like it, and I really didn't. The premise sounded really cool. It's set in a future where the sun is about to explode and human beings are living in domes under the ocean to escape from radiation, but they are running out of air and have to find a hospitable planet. The essay that introduces this book talks about how the author went to counseling and tried to have a more optimistic outlook on life, and with the context of that essay, it's very clear that that is what this book is about an optimistic viewpoint, except that this book begins to feel like emotional torture porn at some point. Like, the main character, the woman, just watches everyone she loves get tortured and kidnapped and killed in front of her. Speaking of porn, the women in this comic are just always in bikinis or naked, and it doesn't actually make sense in the context of the book. And then there's a part where there's just a sex worker woman who is killed just to further the emotional angst of one of the male characters, and basically I just don't feel like this book is for women. The plot itself just kind of meandered along. I was really not a fan. And finally I read Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Córdova, and this I got as an e-arc. It comes out in September. This is a YA book. It's about a girl who is a bruja, which is kind of a Latina witch, and it is this magical system that is inspired by different Latin American cultures and belief systems. It was really interesting to see a magical system and world that wasn't based on European mythology and beliefs. This is also a bisexual young adult book, and there's kind of a bit of a love triangle, and the broody guy, part of the love triangle, I predictably was not interested in. I hate broody guy characters. But the girl love interest slash best friend was adorable. I was feeling a little bit shaky about this book partway through. I had a couple of issues, but they all worked themselves out before the end of the book. I wasn't expecting so much of this book to take place in another world. I think a review talked about it as a dark Alice in Wonderland limbo world, which it kind of is. So this is definitely one I'd recommend. And those were all the books that I read in June. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you've thought of them. And if you have a wrap-up, feel free to link it down below and I'll definitely check it out. And thank you for watching. Bye!